Now that you've earned a law degree and hung out your shingle, how do you attract and keep clients? This book is the answer to that question. Beyond the Shingle is your concise and practical guide to growing your law firm. Diane Alverio gives in-depth advice on how to utilize public relations tactics, write effective news releases, develop a website that gives a fantastic first impression, network with online social media contacts, and create an impact for you and your firm. Think of this book as your toolkit for success.
Welcome to Law First Publishing Theater. Our guest today is Diane Alverio. Diane is the author of the Law First Publishing bestseller, Beyond the Shingle, a resource for public relations and working with the media. Welcome to the program.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
Diane, give me just a little bit of background of yourself.
Well, once a journalist, always a journalist, I always think. And while I am currently the owner and principal of Diane Alverio & Company, a public relations and marketing firm with offices in Hartford, I spent most of my career as a journalist in radio, in television, in newspapers. So that's really my DNA. I love asking the questions. So I enjoyed writing this book and synthesizing that information into the book to help people understand what they needed to do in terms of marketing their law firm.
What's the aim of your book?
It really is aimed at solo practitioners and smaller firms. Obviously, the larger firms, law firms, have in-house marketing support. But sometimes, and not sometimes, I have tons of friends who are lawyers, and just having worked with CBA for many years now, you learn law in law school. You don't necessarily learn the business of marketing your firm, of marketing your services. So that really is the point, and it's very to the point. It's a how-to. It's providing very specific tips and strategies in terms of what you need to do for social marketing, online, public relations, advertising, just some real specific examples, hopefully to help someone move their firm along.
Diane, we've heard a lot about marketing with social media. What does that mean?
I mean, Facebook, because it was created by a young person, and that was its original purpose, and young people were the first who took it over. It's seen as just a social media, and I think when people think social, they think, oh, it's about where did I go on my vacation, and where was I last night with my friends, sort of thing. But it really is more than that. And one of my favorite stories when I speak to groups is, and I ask young people this a lot, this is what I do for a living, so I need to be as informed, and I'll ask, well, where do you get your news from? Facebook. Well, dig a little deeper. Well, what do you mean Facebook? Where did you go? And they'll tell me about a particular story, but it came from a news source. For example, one was NBC Connecticut. After I dug a little deeper, well, it didn't come from Facebook, did it? Facebook allowed them access to that news source. So I will say that same for lawyers, for example, for attorneys, which, for example, here's something specific. If you're cited in a story for whatever the legal case you're working on, or you're cited especially as a legal expert in your field of expertise, it's a news story. You link it onto Facebook. And that's a news source. A lot of people are going to it. That's why that young man is making how much is in the initial IPO. A lot of people do use it, and generationally, that's where they're going to go to the news sources. So that you have to be part of the conversation. What I hear is that, well, it seems frivolous, we're not even part of it. My advice is you have to get on it to understand how it works. To not even participate, you're not part of the conversation. Not only to put your information out there, but to find out what the rest of the conversation is. It'll be interesting to see what all of these different political candidates are putting out there, what Governor Malloy is putting out there on Facebook, what President Obama puts out there on Facebook. So that tells you a little bit about the information that's out there. It's a niche market, absolutely, but it is a segment that you cannot ignore.
Diane, we hear a lot about the changing media landscape. What does that mean?
I bet you do, because that is the number one topic. It means the media landscape has changed. 7, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, we would not even be having this conversation. We had our newspapers, our television, everything was in place. It's the advent of the online news sources. And I have to tell you that I have clients who wonder, well, wait, we're not getting, they'll call me in, and we're not getting our press releases or our photos in the newspaper. Well, take a step back. They don't exist in the numbers they did. They're not submitting them to the online news sources. And you have to, because that is part of the equation now. And it's generational. It's generational. Once you're used to, for 30 years of working with set number of vehicles, many people unfortunately still see online as, well, that's not really news. Well, I don't know. In my book I talk about in the at the last presidential Democratic convention, both conventions, they had 2,100 credentialed bloggers. And while there's still debate on blogging and all of that, they're credentialed as press in terms of distributing information. So if you don't want to associate with them, you're missing important vehicles.
Great. Diane, let me give you a scenario that relates to your book in public relations. Suppose you're a lawyer and you receive a call from a reporter. What should you do?
Not to panic, number one. 2, you want to extract as much information. I call that the pre-interview checklist. Your first question is, what's your deadline? First of all, if you're answering the phone, you need to buy yourself time. But the first questions, whether it's yourself or your point of entry and whoever answers your phone in your office, should ask these questions. What's your deadline? What's the information you're looking for? So that you have some time to process and figure out how you'd like to respond. If you're a solo practitioner and you don't have that person, then that can intercept that call for you, and you probably shouldn't give out your cell phone. Let me just say that. Unless you're just, really want to get out there. But you really, what you want to do is buy yourself time. If you're answering that phone as the solo practitioner, most of us don't sit at our desk and are in the middle of nothing. You are doing something. So you really want to say something like, I'm in the middle of another project, let me call you back in half an hour after you've extracted that information. But let me add, most of us know what we're working on that might be newsworthy, whether it's the legal case you're working on, or you happen to sit, you're the corporation counsel for a town, or you sit on the local, city council. What are the issues? Are they cutting the budget for the police force? They're closing the parks Monday to Friday. Whatever the issue is, you should probably think that through in advance before a reporter calls. If a reporter doesn't call, that's okay. But at least the more time you have to process and think through what kinds of statements you'd like to make, the better off you're going to be. And no comment, and I have to say this because I'm still seeing it out there, and I'm shocked that I'm seeing it out there, no comment conveys that you have something you don't want to share, or you're covering up something. It really does. It really does. So you should always, I'm not stating that you should provide this information, but no comment is not the way to go. Rather that I can't speak to that right now. Let me look into it, or use another term in terms of, it's a personnel issue, whatever that is. But there's other ways to not say anything rather than no comment.
Diane, thanks very much for being with us today. And thank you for being with Law First Publishing Theater. Thank you.